Home prices fell in February for the first time since 2012. Is the sky falling in real estate? What do these headlines mean? Are you going to see more of them? I'm going to break that down in this video, along with what you should be doing as a home buyer in this current environment where affordability is an issue. I'll give you that. Stay tuned. All right, Matt, the mortgage guy, residential mortgage broker, licensed in 45 states now, up from 44. If you want to connect me and my team, go to greatmortgagebroker.com. Today, I want to talk to you about first year-over-year home price decline since 2012, what it means, why we're likely to see more of those throughout this year, and then what you can do as a home buyer who's buying in this current environment, right? And so let's get started. I reference RedFin data a lot. They do a great job. You can Google RedFin data center. You can look at RedFin news. They've got a lot of great articles. They've got a lot of great stats. I'm going to look at all of that today. I'm going to start with the article about the year-over-year price drop. We're going to go through some stats and just give you kind of my take on what some of these stats mean. And then towards the end, I'm going to tell you what you as a buyer should be thinking about and can be doing in this current interest rate environment. Home prices fell 1% in February, first annual drop since 2012. First, for people that don't understand what these metrics mean, when they say fell 1% in February, they're talking about year-over-year home prices. So if you take the median home price from February of 2022 and compare it with the median home price in February 2023, it's down 1%. Where it was, 400, it's now 396. That's the 1% comparison. You're going to see more of this because we saw home prices from a lot of the stuff that I was paying attention to continue to increase into that spring buying season through April and May of 22. And a lot of markets, if you look at where they peaked out median home price wise, it was April or May of 2022. And some of them have come down 10, 12, 15% since that peak. So rest assured, March year over year is going to be a drop. April year over year is likely to be a drop. I think that it was Meet Kevin or somebody else that thought that this current kind of uptick we're seeing with very low inventory, brief spats of mortgage rates coming down, you might see it go up. I think it's more likely to show a decline, but a decline of 1%, a decline of 2%, for all intents and purposes is flat. You're living in a house. Do you care if it's worth 396 or 400? Most people aren't even really paying attention, right? For most home buyers, and this is what I'm going to talk about at the end, it's all about what your monthly mortgage payment is and how that fits into your budget, right? So let's look through this a little bit just to see what this article said. It was only a couple days ago. Prices declined as sellers responded to a drop in home buyer demand, spurred by elevated mortgage rates. Mortgage rates went up. Homes got less affordable. Less people were buying. Sellers had to concede on price, concessions, both, right? And so, of course, this is not a surprise to many people that are paying attention, right? Many sellers were hesitant to enter the market. New listings fell. Yeah, we know that. So the median U.S. home sale price fell 1.2% in February to $386,721. So that means it's down roughly $4,000. If 3,867, according to this number, is 1%, then 1.2% is rough math, $4,000. Sellers have been forced to lower their expectations because of higher mortgage rates. This is not a surprise to anybody that demand slows down as things get less affordable, right? I'm not going to read through this whole article. If you want to check it out, it looks like redfin.com/news. And then they've got this housing market tracker and a bunch of good articles that you can read on this. What I do think is interesting, and we'll look at, is this housing market data that is going to show us median sale price. And this is all Redfin metros. I thought about doing it, a certain area, that might have been, more relevant to some and less to others. But this is just all the major metros that Redfin tracks. This darker line is 2022. This, we call it light blue line, is 2023. And look how you can see the year over year numbers. They were, oscillating for the first couple months of the year between up 1%, completely flat at 0. And now, although they're trending upwards, they're still 1% lower than what they were last year. Look at last year's number, where year over year they're up 16, 17%. This is on average, right? Like, we needed to come off of those crazy numbers. 2021, you saw a lot of the same stuff. And this, don't get confused with this median sales price going up and the year over year numbers. The year over year numbers just reflects what it was versus the prior year. But you get into the April, May, June buying season, and 2021 year over year median sales price was up 23, 24% as an average, meaning some markets were in the 30s. Some were only 15% year over year. But, those 2 years, 21 and 22, just saw dramatic home price increases, right? And the median sales price here being tracked shows this. 2020, when you look at it versus 19, was more normal, right? 7%, 4%, 2%, flat, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? Like this is normal home price appreciation year over year, single digit type stuff, right? So 2021 and 22 were crazy year over year home price increases, and now we're entering what will likely be a relatively flat year year over year. If it trends below last year and it's down 3%, 5%, 7% year over year, it's a healthy thing. It's I would guess that's more likely to me than like some people are saying, with such low inventory, increased demand, we might go even higher. I'm rooting for this blue line to come in underneath the dark blue and have some year over year. We've seen since the peak, since May, 10 to 15% decline in a lot of markets. And, it wouldn't hurt to see a little bit more price softening, we'll call it. We're definitely not calling it a crash. Crash Brothers can keep dreaming. And so here's what these lines look like if we're just looking at year over year. Like I showed you, 2021, bonkers, right? 25%, 23.8% year over year home price appreciation. This is 2020, which is, relatively flat, 5%, 10% maybe from 2019. 2022, well, the median home price wasn't accelerating as much, towards the second half of the year. The first half, we still saw 15% year on year increases. And then the second half of the year, 7% year on year, 3%. And it's slowly coming back down to earth, right? And now here we are, 2023. Flat, up 1% year over year, even year over year, down 1% year over year. Over the next, call it 3 to 6 months, it'll be interesting to watch, right? Because we've got very little inventory, which in my opinion, I've said this 1,000 times, will create a floor. You can't be down 20% year on year median sales price when there's no inventory, right? And if there's less buyers, that's fine, but there's a lot less for them to choose from as well. So anyway, we'll pay attention to that. It'll be interesting to circle back to this and see what goes on there. So Redfin economists, tips about home buying and selling. And for in the interest of time, I'm not going to read this article, but they said a lot of the things that I've talked about when it comes to first-time home buyers entering the markets, things you can do. There's plenty of stuff. There is seller concessions to be had, where if you take $8,000, $10,000, $12,000 in seller credit and buy your rate down, you're going to have a much more affordable mortgage, which ultimately, like, that's the number one thing for home buyers is how much is my mortgage? How does that fit into my budget? The 2-1 buy down is still a tool that's widely used, and it's a great tool. Not all homes and not all markets are going to be markets that you see seller concessions and you're able to get those to buy down the interest rates, but certainly an option. My biggest thing for buyers, right? And here's the thing is that there's less buyers in the market. Some would even say that the buyers in the market, it's their time to buy, right? So the people that are casual buyers or, just a want and not a need, like, yeah, I'd want a bigger house. I don't necessarily need it, right? Like if they're completely sidelined, but you're a buyer who need a bigger home. I'm relocating. I'm ready. I've got a 6-figure job and I've got a down payment saved and I'm a first-time home buyer. I'm ready. Put me in the game, coach. If that is you, my biggest plea to you is make sure you understand the numbers and your budget, if nothing else. Get yourself pre-approved, find out exactly what the mortgage payment looks like, and look at that long before you walk through open houses. For some of you, that's not possible. You've already walked through open houses. You're already excited about real estate. You already know all the benefits of owning real estate over the long term. Fine. But get yourself pre-approved. If you want to talk to me and my team, greatmortgagebroker.com. Go check us out. When you get pre-approved with a lender like us, we're going to send you an Excel spreadsheet for your desired purchase price of $600,000 with 10% down. Here's what it looks like. If you got a seller concession, we're able to do a 2-1 buy down. Here's what that looks like. If you're able to get a seller credit and buy down the rate to a 5.99%, here's what that looks like. If you decide you only want to put 5% down and keep more in the bank, here's what that looks like. Once you know those numbers, you should be more comfortable going out and submitting offers, because then you can see, okay, I know here's what I make per month. Here's what I have going to rent every month. If my mortgage payment is less than or more than that, and by how much, and how much am I saving per month, have a little bit of thought about finances before going in and buying real estate. It'll make the process more comfortable. It'll make the future more comfortable. It will make this great appreciating asset of real estate something that doesn't terrify you like it does some. Hopefully that was helpful. Thanks for watching. I've got 800 plus other videos on the channel, so check them out here, here, and here. I'll be releasing 3 videos a week from now until when you guys tell me to shut my mouth. Thanks for watching.